How big can I get my heart to be?
Thought Media Network proudly presents
How much love can I get flowing out of me?
The Real Talk Sisters. Deep, unfiltered, soulful conversations with Reverend Dr. Pjae Stanley, Reverend Kim Andrews, and Reverend Melinda Wood Allen.
How big can I get my heart to be?
Join us for Real Talk on Real Issues. Tuesday.
Oh. Well, hello.
How are you, darling? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yes.
We are here
Welcome,
today
everyone. Yes.
without Melinda Wood Allen,
Yes.
who is from the Church of One Love in Farmers Branch, Texas. And she's out doing what she needs to do for her family today. And so
There you go.
Jay and I are holding down the fort, so to speak.
I think we can do it.
I think we can. I think we can. My name is Kim Andrews, and I'm spiritual leader at Unity Spiritual Center in sexy, Texas.
And my name is Reverend Dr. Pjae Stanley, and I am the spiritual leader for Harmony Spiritual Center in Fort Worth, Texas. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, welcome. Today we are, well, let's do a check-in. We haven't done that.
How about that? So, yeah.
Are you having
we just
technical difficulties over there?
Something about hearing double mics. I don't know what that means.
Oh, our producer's speaking to us.
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, I will take out my earphones and see if that helps. Just go straight to 5.
And in the meantime, I'll check in.
All right. Can you hear me, Kim?
Yeah, I can.
All right. So, Zoe, I hope that helps with the double micing thing. And yeah, check in. So, I mean, I'm not sure. I don't think I have anything to check in. I mean, last week I was kind of, I was just kind of in a crazy spot. And thank the Lord for my Real Talk sister that talked me down out of the tree and helped me put my foot down and stop kicking myself. So thank you for that. I have no such issues this week. This is a good week. It's just lovely. I was supposed to go to a family reunion, but that didn't happen due to the ongoing power outages down in the Galveston, Houston area. So I'm just grateful that everyone's okay. Some difficulties with getting food and gas and things like that. And he said he's still hearing everything repeated. I don't know what to tell you. So anyway, let's see if that happens when you talk, Kim.
So I am doing well. I'll do a check-in here and we'll see what's happening as we get messages from him. I'm doing well. I've had a good week. I am keeping up with my self-care and honoring the fact that I need time off more often than I thought. I have been looking at who else can speak for me at my center from time to time. And it's going better. I'm not getting as much sleep as I would like to, and I need to work on that. If the bags under my eyes could get any bigger. The bags under my eyes can no longer fit me overhead. That's how big the bags are.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Need some sleep. So I need to start working on that. And I probably need to get a routine so I start winding down before I get in bed. And I need to get in bed sooner.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm waiting till 11:30, close to midnight. For what reason? I'm not a late night person. I'm up before the sun at 5:30.
Yeah.
Sometimes 4:30.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I just wake up but I do that no matter what time I go to sleep.
Right.
Yeah, my body doesn't sleep till 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. I know some people can do that, and
I can only do it by
sleeping pill. Open.
Boom. Let's go. What's going on? What's out there?
This is who we are. This is what we do at 5 a.m.
5 a.m. Let's go. What are you doing?
Snap to it. Snap to it. So yeah, and sometimes I lay there for like a half an hour or so, but yeah, I'm wide awake. I think, oh, maybe I'll roll over. There's no rolling over for me.
No.
So yeah, I just get up and I get started. Sometimes I take a nap. during the day, but self-care is going better.
Good.
You learn the hard way. I got myself overwhelmed last time, and it wasn't good.
Yeah. I think I love it. I think that's what life is. It's about all the experiences that we have and what we want to do with them, what we're learning from them, what they tell us about ourselves, how we want to keep or let go or whatever it is. But like you guys helped me with last week, whatever it is, it's an experience that we can learn from, and we don't have to beat ourselves up. We can still love ourselves through it. Know, whatever is showing up as not me is an anomaly. It's not who I am. It's not who we are, and we can forgive ourselves for that. So there was some really good work last week that you guys helped me through, and I really appreciate it. So even with all that we've done and all that we go through, and all that we do as ministers, I'm just looking at this message that Zoe was sending us. We still continue to have work to do. The work seems to never end, which is okay. I'm not complaining. I like it. I like
forever growing and expanding. So
exactly.
There will be work that comes with that.
Exactly. So.
And I know that if I choose not to get a lesson from something, I'm most likely to bump my head again in that same arena.
I believe that's the universe saying, "Hey, girlfriend, nope, didn't learn it.
Tried to catch you last time, and you zipped along, didn't want to deal with it, and so here we are.
Here we are again. Lessons a little harder, a little louder, a little,
Hurts a little bit more. Yeah.
Clearly, we weren't listening the last time, so that's how that goes. So we learned that. All right.
Clearly.
Let me get to stop hollering. So.
Try to do you a favor and shake your little coattail, and no, you're moving too fast. So, I try to catch the lessons where they present themselves.
Yes.
And really think about, what is it that I need to change or accept or allow or forgive.
Enable all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that, I was, doing this, the brave thinking thing that I'm doing with this course I'm taking. And they talk about, and we shared this with you and I with this, and with Kim, about having partners in believing. So just having partners, and you guys are that for me, where I can just be myself and say, hey, what is happening? Help me here. Or, this is great. I think this is great. What do you guys think? And just run that by people who we know are on that same path and doing the hard work, the hard and ongoing work that it takes to live this spiritual life we say we want to live. And I do want to live it. There's no question about it. I am living it. I do want to. I am living it. And so I love this life. But it is work for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Which might be a good segue into our topic, which is shifting into love.
Yes.
From a place of either fear or estrangement. Yeah. Or having conditions.
Right. So ego that's got you unable to do trauma, all kinds of things. And so, how do you do that? And I think, and this came up because of what we were talking about last week. Personally, I was unable to shift into love. I was unable to do it, even though Spirit was telling me I knew that's where I should have gone, but I couldn't get there. And so I think it's a great topic to talk about. How do we go from this ego place or whatever you might be thinking about as well? This is what I'm thinking of. How we go from this place of ego, not seeing the love, because I believe that we are all individualized expressions. We are all the love of God here on earth. And I can't see that. What's happened here? Why can't I see that? Because I actually believe that is true, but I was unable to. And actually, that's not true. I'm sorry. I was able to believe it, but I wasn't willing to go with it, go with what I saw, what I knew to be true. I wasn't able to go with it. So, so it's good to talk about that. When we know what we're trying to do, and yet how do we actually shift into that loving place who we are and where we want to be and how we want to see the world? How do we do that? And what stops us from doing that? That's how I see it. What are you thinking about this topic?
So, yes, I agree with all of that. And I think the most frequent experiences I've had with shifting into love was shifting my relationship with my brother and with my mother. So my mother, the situation with her happened earlier, and just to set the stage, my mother and I were close in my younger years, so probably teens, 20s, 30s, I was not nearly as close to my father, but my father was a different man when I was growing up. He softened and really started living from his heart more so I was probably in my 40s. So that meant he was probably 60s, close to 70.
Okay.
And he really did change then. He started to do some real hard work on himself. And my parents did not have a good marriage, which I've talked about before on this show.
Yeah.
They did not have a good marriage. And as I got closer to my father, my mother withdrew from me.
Interesting.
Her feeling was that there was a finite amount of love. And so if I was giving more love to someone else, that means I had to take it from her in order to love, and especially to love my father. So in my early years, because my mother was more prominent in our lives, because my father was out working, trying to feed 3 children and put us through Catholic school, uniforms, keep cars running, things like that. And he wasn't making a lot of money because he was a teacher when I was a little girl. And then he started making much more money when he moved to training and development with Exxon. But in the beginning, it was hard. I mean, we were in Catholic school and 4-H, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts.
Wow.
It's just a lot for him. So he worked sometimes 2 jobs.
Wow.
On a regular basis. So he wasn't around, but he was taking care of us.
Right. Right.
But he wasn't in the home as often as my mother. So we had more active relationship with her. And because they didn't have a good marriage, what I knew of my father came from my mother.
Yes.
And that was what we were getting was not good.
Right. Tainted, I'm sure.
Yeah. And, but so it wasn't until I got into my 30s that I was able to see both of my parents as human beings who come into a relationship with their stuff, because I'm experiencing myself in relationships coming with my stuff.
Hello.
And that's when I started to come into my own. I remember talking to my parents and I said, look, I don't want to hear what you think about your spouse, because this is your marriage, not mine. Don't call me and talk to me about I told my dad, don't call me and talk about my mother. I told my mother, don't call and talk about my dad, because it was hard for me to have relationships with them when they were bashing each other.
Correct.
Me. So I said, don't call me anymore about either. I'm not going to take those calls.
Good for you.
And really had some strong boundaries there. And I kept them, and they were mad at me for a time, but they got over it. They got over it. And so did I. I felt better immediately because I was taking on all their stress for their marriage.
Right.
I can't do anything. And I was 200 miles away. And I said, please go downstairs and talk to your husband. Yeah. I'm 200 miles away. And it's not my marriage.
Yeah.
I'm the product of their marriage. I shouldn't be hearing about your stuff. So again, my mother just withdrew because I was getting close to my father. It did help that I wasn't hearing something else from someone else about him. And we started to get closer, my 40s and 50s, after I got married. We just got so close. We talked about our stuff. He was vulnerable with me. I was vulnerable with him. And so, his last year, so he died in 2009. Mm-hmm. And my mother moved here from New Jersey, sold the house, moved here to Texas after he passed away, and she sold the house. And it was not good because the old stuff, dysfunction and stuff from growing up was still there. And I had really gotten away from that in my life. And it's not something I did in my marriage. We didn't do sarcasm. We didn't do passive aggressive BS with each other. And when she got here and I realized she was still in that, I had to have a talk with her about it. And I wanted to talk about a number of things because I wanted to heal from a lot of things we had been through, a lot of the dysfunction that were in my family growing up.
Yeah.
And she just was not having it. She would listen to me, but she didn't want to get into a discourse.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about some of the things that happened with my father when he was ill. So before his death, he went through probably about 5 years of his health just steadily declining. And because of the nature of their marriage, my mother didn't want to take care of him.
Wow.
She didn't want to do anything for him, nothing. And it angered me to no end, because my mother was the type of person who would see somebody a homeless person walking down the street, and she would take them in, give them a room to sleep in, feed them every single day. She volunteered at church, cleaning. She was always bringing people home, helping unwed mothers have their babies. It was not unusual to come home for the weekend and somebody was living with them, somebody my mother took in. So she would take care of everybody in the world, but not the father of her children. And one day when I came home, and this was close to when he died, I came home and realized he hadn't been bathed in a very, very long time. And Pjae, I lost it. I just lost it.
Yeah.
And so I had this, she and I talked about it, or I talked to her about it, and told her how angry I was. And I said, even if you didn't want to do it, you could have told me that. I could have found somebody to come and do it. And then I actually that first time did it for them. And I think I may have talked about that last time or something.
Yeah, you did. It was great. Beautiful.
So, it was a very sacred experience with him, but he didn't have to get there.
Right.
And I just lost. I was so angry. And so I had that anger within me around her. So when she moved here to Texas after his death, I had made my peace with it, but there was such a distance between us.
Yes.
And I had to have boundaries with her here. I had to say things like, please don't talk to me a certain way.
Yeah.
A lot of that sarcasm was still coming up. I said, Mom, if you can't speak to me respectfully and nicely, I'm your daughter, for heaven's sakes. I'm the one. You moved here because you knew that I would take care of you and follow through on your wishes for the end of your life. That's why you moved here, because you said, I'm the one you can trust. But yet you still treat me badly.
Yes.
And so we talked about that. So she just didn't talk. And that was good. But
yes. That's how we gotta do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So she listened to me and she did that. And I said, okay, that's good. But it's so sobering when your own mother. Anyway, there's such a normal relationship. So when it's bad, it can be very painful.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a mother, essentially.
Yes.
Probably for the last 6 to 8 years of her life.
Yeah.
And so she was here. I was a good daughter. Every time she needed something, I was there. But there was always this distance. And I did make my peace with it. I did have in my meditation time one day said, if she does pass away and things are like this, can I look in the mirror? Can I be peaceful?
Hello. Bottom line, it's about your life moving forward. Yes.
And the answer to that was yes, because I had tried everything.
Yes.
And she put up a wall.
Yeah.
And said, we're only going to go so far.
She wasn't able to do that work. She wasn't able to do that work.
And I get it. I get why.
Yes, exactly.
But it didn't make it easy.
No, it doesn't.
And then she had a stroke in August of 2015. And I, like flipping a switch, all of that drama, all of that resentment, well, not resentment, because I was at peace, but that wall that was between us just kind of imploded.
Yeah.
Because in that moment, I knew that she was another divine soul who needed someone to advocate for her. I did still love her. It's not like I stopped loving her, but I had to love her with some very strong emotional boundaries.
Yes, yes. So you can't keep getting yourself hurt, because how do you keep showing up when someone continues to hurt you? So there's got to be some kind of boundaries there.
That's right. So
I understand that.
She had that stroke. They called me. She actually had it in her doctor's office. She was seeing a counselor, and they called me from there and said, look, we've dialed 911 because it looks like your mother's presenting like she's having a stroke. And I met her at the hospital. And it was almost like all the other stuff before that hour disappeared.
Yeah.
And I knew that responding to this with my full heart was the only way I could do it and live with myself.
Yeah.
and be there for her, and to have somebody who was not with her and detached, but really with her in
Really
whatever condition she was in. And she did well so for about 3 weeks, she did well. After weeks, she went into rehab. She had a second stroke while she was in rehab, and that was devastating. And she died 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
She was rushed back to the ICU after that second stroke. She was in the hospital in ICU for about a week, and then I had her transferred into hospice.
Yeah.
And those 6 weeks after she had that first stroke, I was loving, caring. I probably hugged her, touched her more. I rubbed her feet. I combed her hair. I sang to her. Some days I would just lay down next to her in the bed and hold her. If she had doctors coming in and procedures done, often I would ask them, can I stay in the room? Because I didn't want her to be alone. I wanted her to know I was there.
Yeah.
I would talk to her, even not knowing whether or not she was truly hearing me. And, her brain was slowly dying. And the neurologist told me that. I have no idea if she comprehended who I was or what I was saying to her. Yes. But I knew that I wanted, just in case, that I wanted her to know someone who loved her was there.
Right.
And I did love her fully, and I forgot all of that stuff. And, after she died, I thought,
yeah, I know. Kim, why don't we take a quick break? We'll come back to this. We'll come back to this, and we'll talk about how we shift into love from there.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and so we're going to come back. This is a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing. And let's go ahead and take a break. Oh, so we're back, and Kim, this is we've talked about this, and mothers, fathers, these are difficult conversations. Thank you so much for sharing all this with us. And so go ahead and continue what you were talking about, and I've got some things I want to that you're bringing up that I think I want to make some points about. But how did you shift that? I mean, that feeling of, how did you shift it?
I think I just reevaluated what was needed in the moment, and that love was a different kind of love.
Yeah.
Was necessary now. And I knew that I had to find more within myself to help my mother through this new phase that we were in together. And it was just me and her. So my husband was here. She dearly loved my husband. He was taking care of home. And but I was with her most of the time. And so it was almost instantaneous, because I made a decision. I made a conscious decision.
Yes.
To show up differently, because I needed to, because we often talk about that. How do we want to show up in the world?
Yes. And
so that was very clear to me, that I couldn't continue to show up the same way, that this situation required something else. And that something else was me.
I was going to say, you could have continued to show, but you didn't want to. That wasn't working for who you say you are. And so it was a clear decision to show up.
My niece called me when we were talking one day, and she said, you don't have to do this, because she might not do it for you. And I said, it doesn't matter.
That's not it.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's point.
And it doesn't matter what she felt about me, or because I didn't know. It had been a long time. You know, actually, when my mother was, the last night I saw her in rehab before the devastating stroke, I left her there and she looked at me and she threw her arms up in the air and she said, I love you so much.
Wow.
And I said, I love you too, Mom. And that was the first time in probably a very long time that she had really said, I love you, with some warmth behind it, no sarcasm, just an openness of heart. And I said the same thing back to her. They called me at 6 o'clock the very next morning and said, you know, she's had a second stroke and it's devastating.
Wow.
And no more communication after that. And so, yeah, I knew that something else was required. And I knew I was the one who had to shift.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And so I didn't question it. I just shifted because I was in this really, I was in an emergency situation.
Yeah.
And she needed me and she needed me now. And it mattered not that we would ever be in a situation, if we were in the same situation, but I was the one in need of love, that she would do the same for me.
Right.
It didn't matter.
Yep.
So
That wasn't the point.
I think sometimes with love, when we're really in divine love, unconditional love, it's not tied to whether or not the other person is going to love us back.
At all. At all. It's not a tie.
It's not tit for tat. It's not transactional.
Right.
You're not thinking about what you're going to get, or if you're going to get it, or when you're going to get it. You're not thinking about asking for it. You just know that you have to show up as love right now.
Right. And you know that they can't. You know that they have. If they could, they would.
Yeah.
That's not figuring into what you're doing, because what you have to do when it's shifting into love. So let me just say this: a couple of things that from your conversation and from me resonating with your conversation, a couple of points that I pull out, and one of them is it's a decision that you make. Shifting into love is a decision that you make. Now, sometimes it's a decision that you can't easily do, just because for whatever reason things are. There's a whole lot of time built up, the shifting relationship between your mom from being the one who loved you to being the one who didn't because she was jealous of the relationship that you have with your father. So that just created a whole different dynamic. Yeah. And so she shifted to a different place that she wasn't before. And now you guys kind of had a more antagonistic, not on your part perhaps, but a more antagonistic. But at this point in your life, it's like, okay, well, there's nothing else to be done. The bottom line is, I love you. That's for you. Conversation in your own mind and heart. Bottom line is, I love my parents. I love my dad. I love my mom. And this is what I can do. This is what love can do now.
Yes.
Regardless of what she is and where she's at, this is what love can do. So you made the decision to bring your full heart and all of your love into that relationship with her with the time that you had available. That was it. Regardless of whether she was going to respond. Regardless of whether she even recognized that what you were doing. Didn't matter. You brought that because you needed to. You had to. It's who you were. And you decided to shift into love. So that's one of the ways to do it.
It was a very sacred, loving time. It's probably that 6 week is precious to me. Yes. At times it felt like it was 6 months rather than 6 weeks because it was, I was with her just about 12 hours a day.
Yes.
Because I would go early when the nurses were changing shifts and I wanted to talk to the night nurse and be there meet the one who was coming on during the day. Sometimes I'm waiting for doctors to come in. I didn't want her to be there alone for a lot of the time. And I would bring stuff to do. Often I didn't do it. I would have friends that would come in, bring me lunch or take me to lunch, or, we'd go out for a walk or something like that around the hospital grounds. So, my husband would stop by every once in a while. And, so it was a wonderful time. I was protective of her when she got into hospice. I wouldn't let people come in the room and have conversations over her. Yeah. Because she couldn't respond at that time. She was, she wasn't in a coma, but she was semi-conscious, if that is even possible with the state of her brain at that time.
Right.
And there were times when I was with her at hospice where it felt like I felt like something was going on with her or within her, and that she needed to be alone. So I would go in the family room or stand out in the hall. And I imagine something deeply spiritual was happening.
I completely concur.
Um,
Just things you can't explain. You just know it's happening.
you
And
just know it's happening. And I felt like an intruder at times, and I would
Yes.
leave the room.
Yes.
And other times I would say the rosary in the room with her because I know she loved that. And
Right.
I would leave the rosaries in her hand. If she moved at all, she would move the beads through her fingers.
Nice.
So you know, it was a very warm time. We didn't have warm times before that.
Gotcha.
And the thing that got me emotional before we went to break was that I thought often, and I think about it still sometimes, why couldn't I make that shift prior to her having a stroke? I don't kick myself for not doing it. Yes. But also she was present in the relationship and was putting walls up with me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
She would just say, no, I don't want to talk about that. No, I don't want to do that. It was very clear to me she was struggling with saying something nice to me, so she wouldn't speak. And I respected that she wouldn't speak. And also hurt and sobered by the fact that she couldn't find something nice to say to me.
Yes.
Or she would say it ass backwards or with sarcasm, backhanded compliment.
Absolutely.
So there was that. And, my husband was the buffer for the two of us.
Yes.
He enjoyed him. I enjoyed him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there you go.
And I think she could have done without me. I think maybe I pushed the envelope too much with her because I wanted to do this deep work, and she just wanted to not be bothered.
We had the conversations, you and I, and certainly you once you found your mom's diaries and words, that there was just a life that you were unaware of, and I guess she was as well, that she went through. And so, and I look at my mother. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because I look at my mom, and she didn't talk about things either. She just simply wouldn't. And I don't know. Perhaps that's a generational thing, of that generation.
I think so.
I really do. I really think so. And I had in my mind when I became an adult that my mother and I would have this adult relationship where we would talk about things, and she would share with me her deep feelings, her longings, her hurts, or whatever it was. And all she would ever bring up was anger. All she would ever get my father, anger at the way her life ended up, which by the way, her life ended, and your life does. Your life is actually a part of what you're calling in. Mm-hmm. She wasn't able to understand that. There was just no education or learning or ability to understand that. And so back to, what it takes to shift, bringing your full heart, what you did to your mom, bringing the full love for me and my mom and my father too. It was just early on, let it go and just forgive what they can't do. Just forgive and do what I can do. Just have the relationship that's lesser than I wanted, but still still love in the room. Mm-hmm. So when my mom would say something, start to go, like your dad, go down the, and this is just one instance. This happens or goes on with not just your parents or just whoever you need to bring love to. My mother would start to go down a path about my dad in a negative way. And then I would just say, hey, Mom, share a good memory. Share with me a memory that you remember that was great, because they talked about how much they loved each other in college and all the things they did. I said, tell me a college story. Tell me a story about when you guys first had Denise or whatever. And I would shift her into and then she would just start smiling and telling me this story from a memory that she had. And so we were, again, it's just depending on what the person that you're dealing with, what they can do, what they can allow. Mm-hmm. I never had that conversation with my dad. He was always angry about stuff, and not about my mom. He was guilty about my mom, angry about the things that he did, but not willing to take the blame for it. Mm-hmm. So he would put it out to, well, that guy did this and he did that, and I couldn't do it because of this, that, or the other thing. Okay, well, let's not shift on that, Dad. Let's just be here, you and me today, right now, and talk to me about whatever we could talk about in that moment. And so we didn't have that. That's what we get to bring to the table. That clarity, that deciding we want a relationship. What kind of a relationship can we have given the givens, given what they're able to do and what we're able to do? So for me, this topic of shifting into love, it came up last week, and it comes up for me because I've had so many conversations with people when I realized that I was the one that was going to have to back away, back down, shift it, love them because they weren't going to be able to do it. And we were simply going to go down a negative road between the two of us. And I always thought, why do I always have to be the one backing up or apologizing or whatever? Because I can.
Yes.
Because I can see it. Because of all the work we talk about doing brings us to this place where we can. Not that we're better or anything else, but we have done the work and we get to recognize, oh, this is mine to do. They can't do it.
Yeah.
I can.
And not only can we do it, but we're willing.
We want to do it.
We want to do it, and we want to grow in that area. And so, that's why we're the ones who think about it. And then, but you can only do as much as the other person will let you do.
Will allow you to do. And then you have to love them through that part and forgive them because you have an idea of, or a thought about, or a desire to have more, and they simply cannot give more. And okay, all right. I forgive myself for wanting more, forgive them for not being able to do it, and let's move on.
Yeah. Became, very familiar with that adage, we can, everybody does the best they can at any given moment with what they have.
They really do.
And I was well aware of the kind of pain and trauma my mother had, some of what my father had. He didn't always talk about that because he was very willing to be in the present with me and just be there and talk about life now and explore things about my life and wanted to know about my life. He really opened up in his latter years. And it was beautiful and it was wonderful. And we did have that adult relationship that you're talking about with your mother. I didn't have with my mother either because she didn't want it or couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it.
And she wanted it because that's in her journals, but she could not for some reason.
Yes.
She was afraid of it. She didn't know. As much as I asked her to talk and do things together, she didn't. Yes. But in her journals, she would say, I want to do those things with her. I want to have that kind of relationship. And for some reason was just unable or unwilling or didn't want to. When I opened the door, she didn't want to walk through it.
Yes. It's so frightening to know what's on the other side of that door, or to not know what's on the other side.
To not know, because I didn't know either.
Exactly. But we're willing to go through the door and just deal with what's back there. But my mom wasn't willing to walk through the door. She just didn't. I don't know what's over there, and I know what's on this side. I know the worms that are in this can. I don't know what kind of worms are in that can, and I'm not opening that one. I'm not gonna open it. Yeah, I can't get them back in if I open it. What's gonna happen?
Yeah, and you and I all probably know. I'm tired of the worms. Let's just find something else.
Yeah, let's just.
There's always something better we can do. The heck with the can of worms. Let's find what's better, what's more expansive, because we live in our spirituality is such and our beliefs are such that we know that there's always more love.
Always.
And I don't know that our mothers knew that.
How would they? I don't know how they would have, because who were they? You think about who your mom was around. When I think about who my mom was around, given away by a mother who kept the other kid. Yeah. So what does that do to you? I mean, I can't even imagine, because my mom wasn't like that. She completely loved us all in our own, for who we were. So I can't even imagine the pain of a mom basically saying to you, you're not worth me keeping. He is, but you're not. That's the message that I can see that you would get. So then how would she be able to explore what love looks like? Yeah. So I get that. And I get that. So that's, I really appreciate the work that we're doing, Kim, that all of us are in, that's in this arena, whether it's New Thought or Christian, whatever your spiritual arena is, you're in an arena, I believe, because you want to do better, because you want to be a good person, because you want to understand. And so that is our job. That's the work that we do. We're the ones that can shift into love, because we know that that's the truth of it. And so that's our job, to shift into love, to take what looks like crap from other people, but it's not. It's all that they can do. And sometimes I know this from kids will do this, because I've worked with a lot of juvenile delinquents and things like that. They will give you crap to see if you'll stay. Are you really serious?
Yeah.
You're only testing you. Oh, you're only going to stay if I'm good. What happens if I throw a pile of crap on you? Will you still stay? So, that's that's a part of the testing that we do, and we get that because we know what love looks like and what calling for love looks like, and sometimes
Yeah.
that's what calling for love looks like.
Yeah. And all of this necessitates that we being able and willing to love and to explore more love means that we have to do our own work.
Absolutely.
Constantly. We have to be willing
Constantly.
to love more of ourselves.
Yes.
To do whatever that work is, to heal within ourselves, to be able to make peace with things, to be able to look at our own stuff that we don't want to look at and bring it forward and deal with it. And I think once we do that, then we have a greater capacity to love others and to be there for them and to accept them as they are, because we accept ourselves as we are.
Exactly. And we need to take another quick break, but let's come back to that point where those 2 points of loving ourselves are bringing that forward, how that helps us love other people as well. All right, so let's go ahead and take a quick break and come back to that point. It's a beautiful point. Great. So we're back, and we're talking about the ways in which we shift into love, bringing our full heart and our love into it. Forgiveness is a big deal, making a decision for it. And then the last couple of things we were talking about, there's probably going to be more, but the last thing we were just talking about was we have to look at ourselves and what's missing, what needs to happen, what needs to be brought forth within us. And so one of the things that you guys helped me with after the show, we didn't talk about it during the show, but after the show last week, was I was unable to love myself. I was unable to forgive myself for something I thought I did, for something I thought that I did that was, basically unforgivable and not like who I say I am. And you guys had to bring me back off the cliff and say, put your foot down, girl. Stop kicking yourself. I have that on my wall right now with a big old foot there. Like, put your foot down. Because that's what we do. To love ourselves means we have to love all of ourselves. The good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, all of them.
Yeah.
And even though we're doing the work, it doesn't stop us from being the humans that we still are. So thank you guys for that. But we have to love ourselves and we have to bring forward what needs to be brought forward. And so that's what needed to be brought forward for me last week, for you guys to remind me, hey, that was one incident. That's not the totality of you. That's not totality. That's not the whole you. Yeah, because
you were very insistent upon trying to love the other person.
Yes.
And what we realized in that moment is that you had forgotten about loving yourself.
Exactly.
And we know that, like you said, if we are good at loving ourselves in the moment, then we have the capacity to love someone else. Right. But if we don't take that first step with ourselves, the other's not going to happen.
It just didn't happen. And so that was a real awakening for me to realize, oh, that's what's happening. That's why I can't get there, because I don't like myself right now. So yeah.
We were just thinking, why are you being so hard on yourself? We all, something happened in the moment.
Yes.
And you were doing your best, and it's okay that we're not at our very best.
All the time. Yes.
All the time, because we're not going to be, because life happens.
It does.
Stuff happens.
It does. And it just trips you up. Something comes in your face and wow, that took me down a road.
Yeah. Don't want to be on that. Or then you go, get off that road.
Yep. Get off now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Riding on the shoulder, kicking up dust. Yeah. And so you have to shift again, but shift into loving ourselves. And that expands our emotional intelligence, our emotional capacity. And then we have more love. And I always think, I start doing my affirmations about being a unique divine expression. That means I have an infinite amount of love and capacity to love and to love more deeply and more unconditionally. And so that means, what does it look like now in this situation?
Right.
So with my mother, it was drama doesn't matter. The boundaries don't matter. There are no boundaries here. Give her your full heart, and there's nothing to fear here. I didn't have to protect myself anymore from her.
Yes.
Or actually, I wasn't sure, because I didn't know what was coming up. I didn't know she was only going to live 6 weeks.
Right.
I didn't know that part. So I didn't know, but now I was willing, again, there's that word again. I was willing to show up with my full heart.
Yes.
Which I think, I didn't think I needed protection, because I was there as my full heart, as my divine self.
Exactly.
And in that capacity, I don't need protection, because the protection is my divinity.
Yes.
It is God.
Yes. Yes.
And so I can love as openly as I want to, and whatever happens, I don't construe to be pain or hurt. And I know she's not trying to do something to me. And if she is, it doesn't have to affect me.
Right.
Whereas before that,
yeah,
I was taking things very personally.
Very personally. Absolutely.
Yeah, very
Absolutely.
personally.
And I think one of the things that you guys said to me was about, last week, was like, how much pain was that other person in? Mm-hmm. And I wasn't able to see that, and so once I shifted and realized, okay, what's happening with you? And you gotta love them. They're acting out in this way because they're in pain. Yeah. So the two of you now are going down this pain path. That's not what you want.
Two people in pain doing this.
Just doing this. Yeah. Just doing this. And so, so when I got that, and I thought, okay, yeah, that's part of what love does too. That's part of what shifting into love does. It's like is recognize that that the person in front of you is behaving like this because they're in pain. There's a lack somewhere in their heart. There's a lack of love. There's a lack of loving itself. There's something going on, and you can provide or step into that where that lack is and be that whole person that you are. Bring all the love into it, which transforms everything. That's what I believe. That's what it's beyond belief. It's what I know to be true. That love, unconditional love, is transformational. Mm-hmm. It's transformational. And so, had I recognized that this person isn't bringing this because he's being a jerk, he's in pain. He or she, whatever, is in pain. And I can bring love to the pain and then be okay with myself. Exactly. So that's what it is too. It's recognizing the pain and loving people through their pain and bringing the love. So there's just so many things that it takes, all of which has to do with bringing your full and whole heart to it and knowing who you are. And knowing who you are. You are love in the moment. You're love. You're love all the time, not just in the moment, but in that moment, remembering that's who you are. Mm-hmm. Remembering that's who you are. So, whew.
Yeah, it's a lot. And sometimes, what love requires of us is a lot, but it always, there's always a gift in it. And it always lifts all the parties involved.
Yes.
We'll just open up and come with our full hearts. We all end up benefiting. Even if I'm the one giving love, I benefit as well as my mother in that situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I remember when my father was, during his last days, and I don't even know if he knew. I didn't know whether he knew I was in the room or not. But I knew he liked the sound of my voice. He was always asking me to sing, and he was always asking, and I knew he liked the sound of my voice. And so I didn't want to sit there and sing all day in his room, but I just bought a book that I knew he loved and just read to him. Just read to him just read. And at one point, he just looked at me and he said, he just pointed to his ear. And he had a hearing aid in, but it was howling. It was making a noise, screaming, and he was pointing to could you take it out? And I said, oh, okay. So I took it out and then sat closer to him, and he just smiled, and then he just laid there while I was continuing to talk. Yeah. So it was just a beautiful time. It was a little thing, but it was a big thing. It was the last I saw him. It was the last communication that we had together. It was just me sitting there and him enjoying the sound of my voice. That is love in the room. It's love in the room. I love that. Yeah. That's my memory of him. That's my last memory of him. I love it. Yeah.
And I think before we shift into love, it's those what we construe as small moments, and they're not small. They're very
Yeah.
they're very sacred. They're things that we treasure. They're things
Yes.
that mean a lot.
Yes.
But we don't think of those things when before we've made that shift.
Yes.
They don't even come up for us. We're not even aware that those kind of moments are possible.
Yes.
And it is those very, very, again, not a great word, small things that or simple things
Simple
that
things.
can
Yeah.
mean so much in the moment when we have shifted into love. And it's almost like time itself kind of expands
Yes.
as we expand into love. And it's an amazing thing, but flipping that switch
Yes.
and getting from fear or shame or whatever's going on prior to shifting into love. That can be, like you said, a torturous process.
Yeah.
Unless, like I was, where I was able to shift automatically, but it was the situation that dictated that.
Right.
Before that, I wasn't able to do it, even though there were numerous opportunities for me to make that shift. Prior to that, I just wasn't making it. But again, she was putting up walls.
Yes.
I would say something, she'd put up a wall. I'd walk through it or around it or jump over it, climb over it, and she'd put up another one.
Yeah.
And then after a while, I just gave up and I said, okay, the fantasy of the adult having a beautiful adult relationship with my mother is not going to happen.
Right. Right. And so
I left it alone.
Absolutely. And so what ends up happening, certainly, as my dad with my mom, talking with my mom about, again, having that adult relationship where we would be friends and buddies and all that kind of stuff. We keep going in because we have this desire and expectation for something that is not something that's not showing up. And we keep wanting it to happen. There comes a place or a point when you finally realize, you know what? That's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. What can happen? That ends up being the question. For me, it was okay. Mm-hmm. That's never going to happen. Just recognize that's what the desires of my heart, the expectations that I have, that is never going to happen. Mm-hmm. So what can happen here? That's the question that I asked. And I just thought, I can just be with her. I can just be with her and give her my heart and just love her exactly as she is with no expectation. So just drop the expectation and just be here now. That was what it
I think it's the Buddhists that say with expectations comes suffering.
Oh my God. Yeah. Huge. And once I was able to do that with my mom and my dad, and just so many other things. I had, when I was thinking about this talk and I was looking at what are some examples of shifting into love. And I had some friends that I wrote down some names and so they could just pop up. But as I looked at those names and I think about what was the shift, what was change, what was the commonality in all of them. And it was the expectation of something different.
Yeah.
That I dropped. Mm-hmm. And all of those things, the expectation of something different. There was a and I've never been able to find it. After I read it, I don't know why I didn't save it. I guess I didn't realize over the years how important that story was going to be. But it was either Ann Landers or Dear Abby or one of those types. It was older. It was an old thing. It was like in the 50s that this story came out. And I could have read it in Reader's Digest, who knows. But it was a story of this woman, and I'm thinking it's in the 50s because of what she was talking about, that her husband, she would be, her husband would be at work, and she knew he was coming home, and so she would fix dinner and just be, and dress up and look really nice for him and sit down at the table with him, and there was no conversation, there was nothing ever going on, and she just wondered why, what's going on here? Does he not love me anymore? What can I do to have him love me more? And the response from Ann Landers was, just love him. That was her response. Just love him. And she was thinking, how do I just love him? So what that meant was just love him with no expectation. Mm-hmm. Just love him. So she just started doing what she was doing, but without expectation, without her heart wanting more. Just, this is my way of loving him, showing him, making him a meal and stuff like that. And slowly he just started talking. Mm-hmm. and it just slowly turned her out. She didn't ask him for anything. She just showed up as love because she let go of the expectation. That was a huge story for me, and it stayed with me my whole life. And I wish I had the whole story that I could read it to people, but I remember the gist of it.
Yeah, yeah. Wonderful example. Yes.
Exactly. Just love him. That's what Ann Lander said.
Yeah. And keep loving. Keep loving. No expectation.
Continue to love without expectation. Just love for the love of it. So, yeah. And so that's exactly what we're talking about. So that's how you shift into love. There's all these points that we're talking about, forgiveness and all of that. But the bottom line is just show up as love without expectation.
Just be willing and able to make the shift.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been taking some notes, so I'll put them on the website.
Great.
With a link to today's program. And I think let's continue this next week because I know Melinda's going to have some stories.
Yes.
And this topic is rich. And so we'll
it is so rich.
Talk about on it.
Yeah.
And you may have more stories. And I think it's important to talk about this because I think, especially in the world the way it is now, we are called to love. I think so much more often. It may not be that, but it just seems to be.
I think it is that. I think it is that.
Such a great need right now.
There is.
And I think there's a lot of waiting for the other person to shift first.
Absolutely.
And we have to be the ones to shift. If there's going to be a shift.
If indeed.
We have to open the door. Otherwise, people are still dug in and they're not going to move.
Right. And it just feels,
unless they think there's someplace to move to, and that's us.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And I just feel like the world at this point, everything is just feels so combative. Like everybody is just combative. And I really believe that it is a call for love. It's a call for love. So if we understand that, and that's what we can do, then that's our work in the world right now.
Yes.
It's just to let down the expectation, drop the combativeness, and do what we know to do, what we know is true, love one another. The thing that Jesus called for, that from the very beginning, it's always been called for. It hasn't changed.
Love one another as I have loved you.
As I have loved you.
Yeah, he set the bar, a high bar.
High.
But knew that we were willing, knew that it was possible.
It was possible.
And that we were made of that. And so, yes, we got probably have to sign off in a minute, but Chuck, you want to mention your podcast here, Decide on Joy?
Yeah, so there's just a check out the website that is from Harmony Spiritual Center, which is where I'm the senior minister, and we, myself and my board president, we just simply talk about deciding on joy, which means that we have control of our lives, just like we're talking about on this show right today. We get to decide who we are and how we're going to show up. So decide on joy is the same thing. Decide how you want to show up, just and have a great life. Let go of, what was the thing you said earlier that they said was the cause for pain, the cause for all the expectations. Just decide to show up and let go of expectations. So that's part of it. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it snow. Yeah, all of that. So that's, thank you.
So you can email us at realtalksisters@gmail.com. Our website is realtalksisters.com. And thank you for being here. Wayne, thank you for your comments and thank you for joining us. And we love being here with you and having these conversations. And hopefully we'll have Melinda back with us next Tuesday. Pjae, thank you. I love you.
Thank you. I love you too. Thank you so much for all that you do and for being my partner in belief. You're standing with me. Thank you.
We're deeply grateful to our producer, Zoe. Zoe, you are the absolute best. We love you. And check out Zoe's show on the first Saturday of the month on New Thought Media Network as well. He's wonderful and it'll be a great experience for you. So we are signing out and we'll see you next week.
We will be back.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thanks for being here.